you very much for inviting me. Thank you for Sacher. Thank you for calling and arranging that. Thank you, Audun, for translating what Lina said, and thank you, Lina, for saying all the things that I 100%, 1000% agree with. I will try not to speak too long, so you get enough time to ask questions, and we'll have some time for discussion. Just so I know who I talk to, I understand that actually all of you are one way or another active in the Palestinian cause. So we are not talking with people that are from outside of this scene, or am I right? Okay. So we are among friends, and it's not that I have to start to dwell for a long time about my process of getting out from my Zionist background. I can go straight to the core. But nevertheless, afterwards, if you have questions, please feel free to ask anything about anything, from the political stuff, from activist stuff, emotional, psychological, military, anything you want. I'm happy to try to answer. I will maybe start by saying that when I have to present myself in just one sentence to people, what I lately started saying is that I was a member of a terrorist organization. The Israeli military is inflicting terror on the Palestinians for decades, engage in ethnic cleansing, acts of genocide sometime, and constant massacres and oppression. So I'll just start with something that I said a couple of years ago. I was invited to Kongsberg by a nice organization, some peace organization. I was invited to sing. I'm a musician, and I sing songs that are related to this subject, in Hebrew, in Arabic, in English, sometime in Yiddish. And before I started one of my songs, I told the people in Kongsberg a little bit about myself. I just said that I was a pilot in the Israeli Air Force. I was a captain. I was a rescue helicopter pilot, but nevertheless, in 2003, I realized that the military that I am a member of is engaged in acts of war crime against civilians, and I refused to be part of it. I didn't just refuse, I organized a group of pilots from all branches in the Israeli Air Force, fighter pilot, attack helicopter pilot, rescue helicopter pilot like me, from young captains like me to high brigadier general in the Air Force, and they, about 30 of us, declared our refusal to continue taking part in these war crimes. As a result, of course, we were all discharged, dismissed, and many of us were fired. I was fired from all the companies I worked for as a civilian. That's part of the reason that I am here now in Norway. But when I was talking to people in Kongsberg, I said, you know, we refuse to participate in these attacks on Palestinian cities, on Palestinian cars and citizens and suspects and all the stuff that the Israeli military is engaging. But today, they keep doing that, and they keep using all these Air Force tools that we get for free from the United States. But most of these attacks are done by drones. You don't need to convince a pilot anymore to press a button and to shoot missiles and to drop bombs on civilians. The button is in the headquarters, it could be in the center of Tel Aviv, in the military headquarters, or in some base somewhere in the center. And in Gaza, a drone is going to shoot a missile on a house of dozens of people and kill them all. And I said to the people in Kongsberg, and you know how this drone is finding its way to that house in Gaza that is going to destroy? How does the drone find the family that is going to annihilate and destroy and kill? And there was silence. And then I told them, just look around, look behind you. In Kongsberg ammunition factory, they produce one of the elements that is installed inside the navigation systems of these Predator drones, these Israeli, American, and other drones that are flying over Gaza. So I want you all to know that we are all stakeholders. We are connected to this conflict. We are connected to this oppression. We are connected to this mass killing, even when we are here far away from Palestine. I just checked before the talk. I was supposed to be there, by the way, but I'm working in Arendal, so it was too far for me to come. But I checked before 2 weapon companies in Norway that I know of. One is Kongsberg, that I just told you about, and the other one is Nammo, Nordic Ammunition. It's in Raufoss. You know what is exactly in the middle between these 2 weapon factories? 1 hour and 17 minutes on Google map. Hennefoss. So my suggestion today, and I'll tell you a little bit more about my background and about different conclusions that I have, and the stuff that some of it you already know and some of it maybe will be new to you, but I suggest that we will think practically how to utilize the fact that a group of nice people like you, committed and dedicated to solidarity with the struggle of Palestinian liberation, what can we do together to change this fact, to change the fact that Norway is arming the apartheid, that Norway is sending weapons, is trading with Israel. Even the leftists and the Labour government, all along the years, it's been all the time talking about peace, giving the Nobel Peace Prize, helping with this agreement and another agreement, but the flow of ammunition, the trade of weapons keep going all the time. And I think it's about time that we will organize and make something significant that this will not continue. I suggest to each one of you, and I'm sure many of you already been to Palestine, as long as it's possible to go there, and of course to Gaza it's not possible, but for the rest of the West Bank it's possible. It's important to go, it's important to connect to people on the ground, it's important to engage in these direct actions there and show solidarity, but I think it's even 1,000 times more important to bring this activism home and to change things here on the ground. And I think maybe by that, maybe we will be able to change the public opinion and eventually the decisions and the actions of the Norwegian government. You know, as I said, when I have to present myself in few words, I say that I was a member of terrorist organization, although I was flying rescue missions and not shooting and not dropping bombs, but I felt that I'm part of a terrorist group. I'm part of a group that is engaging in illegal and immoral and war crimes all the time. Now, in a way, I closed the full circle. Just a few months ago, when the Minister of Defense of Israel, a big war criminal named Benny Gantz, who was responsible of the massacres in 2014, he declared, as Lina, I think, mentioned, that the main Palestinian civil society organizations that are engaged in advocacy, in human rights, in defending children, in defending prisoners, in all the stuff that we activists are connected to all the time. Now again, I'm part of terrorist organizations because they declared it as terror group. So in a way, I think in these circumstances, I'm today proud to be part of this terrorist group. And of course, I'm very shameful, very much ashamed for my past in the other terrorist organization of the Israeli IDF. A little bit about my background. I don't know how much you know, but as I said, I was a captain in the Israeli Air Force. I was born to a super Zionist family. My father was a squadron commander, fighter pilot. My mom was a biologist, teaching in school and university. I grew up to believe in the narrative of the Zionist state, all the narrative about 48, the Independence Day, how they call it, the Israel as a democracy in the middle of hostile other enemy countries. All these things was pumped into this big bald head when it was still more hairy. And when I finished high school, of course, I wanted, it wasn't just my obligation, I wanted to join the military. My only doubt was if I want to go to the commando forces or to the Air Force. And I decided to go to the Air Force because it's more difficult and maybe there is a chance that I'm not going to finish the course, so I can go then to the commando. So these were my doubts, my thoughts. I was so clear about my identity and my identifying with the narrative of Israel, the Zionist state. What happened later is that slowly there were cracks in this solid wall, and the wall collapsed eventually after many years. When in the night of July 22nd, 2002, the Israeli Air Force dropped a bomb of 1 ton on the house of Salah Shehadeh in the middle of the Gaza Strip, in one of the most dense, heavy populated neighborhoods. As I told you, I was just a rescue pilot, but nevertheless, I could hear from friends in the Air Force, and I saw, of course, later on the news about this bombardment. The result was that about 15 people died. Most of them were children, I think 9 children, one pregnant woman with a baby inside her womb, about 150 people casualties around that were maimed and blind and with burnt all over their body. From the house that was bombed, the 3-floor building, the only thing left is a huge hole in the ground. And I think I can say that one of the one of the children that in a way died there was the naive Yonatan that I used to be, the Zionist boy that was standing and saluting to the flag and singing the anthem and believing all this constant lying and all this brainwash about the reality in which I lived in. This boy, in a way, died in that bombardment. And it took me a while, but about few months after, I started organizing the group of Air Force pilots. I found a few other young pilots like me that agreed with me, and slowly, without trying not to be exposed, we went from one pilot to another and recruited a group of Air Force pilots, as I told you, and in the end of September 2003, about a year after that bombardment, we came to the office of the commander of the Air Force, and we put our letter of refusal signed by all these other guys. Parallel to that, we went to the biggest newspaper in Israel and the most popular commercial TV channel. We wore our flight suits and went to speak to the public, to everyone that wants to listen. We said that with this uniform, you sent us to be part of these horrible crimes. With this uniform, you will now see us telling you about that and telling you that from now on, we are not part of this crime anymore. You can imagine that not everyone were happy about that, and the reaction was quite strong, but Israel is preserving this image of democracy for the Jews, of course. If you are not Jewish, you don't have democracy. You have an apartheid, you have an authoritarian dictatorship in a way, but they didn't persecute us. They didn't take us to court. The last thing they wanted is to have pilots that are refusing to kill innocent people, giving more publicity to our cause. So we were just discharged. Later on, I think, together with my brothers and other activists, we realized that it's important not just to say no to something, but we have to find what we say yes to. And that's 2005, 2006, we founded an organization called Combatants for Peace, together with Palestinian former fighters and Israeli former fighters. This organization still exists until now and do a lot of actions. But for me, after a few years of being active there, I realized that I cannot be part of something like that, that even if they do good things, there is no way to compare in this power dynamic between the oppressor and the oppressed, the occupier and the occupied. And just by even the name of it, I cannot be part of something like that, that in a way create the image that we are equal sides. It's a struggle for liberation. And if I want to support this liberation struggle, I need to be on the side of the oppressed. And then together with the other activists, we started the Boycott from Within. It's basically BDS, but of Israelis. So we support from within the Israeli society all the actions of the BNC, the BDS committee in Ramallah, and other organizations all around the world that are engaged in these actions. Along this time, approximately, there was the the massacre on the Mavi Marmara, I'm sure you probably remember in 2010, June 30, I think, the flotilla of boats and ships left Turkey to and other places to Gaza. Israeli Navy forces and Air Force and Navy SEALs attacked the boats, and on the Mavi Marmara, which was a big Turkish boat, they killed 10, 11 activists. People got on point blank in the head, the bullets, and it was clearly a massacre. Israel confiscated all the 900 hours of video cameras that were spread in the boat, in the ship, and the only thing they show to the world is a few seconds of Israeli forces landing from helicopters on the boat and being beaten by some of the activists on the boat. They didn't show all the murderers taking place on that horrible night. My side of this story was that the squadron, the Black Hawk squadron that did that, dropping those Navy SEALs on the Mavi Marmara at night, was my own. It was where I used to fly. And when I became an activist and refused and was discharged from the Air Force, people would claim against me that why did you even feel that you have the right to refuse? No one asked you to bomb and drop any bombs. And then I showed them, you see, so even a rescue pilot that flies some commando forces can be part of a massacre. And of course, it doesn't matter. Once you're part of an organization, you are responsible for what this organization is doing. For me, that was clear that on the next boat to Gaza, I have to be there. I studied navigation, and I have a skipper license, so I got to be a co-captain on that boat. We were the first one was of different Jewish activists from Europe and other countries, and of course when we got closer to Gaza, we were attacked by the Israeli Navy. If we were Muslim or Turks or Palestinians, the Navy would kill us like they did on the Mavi Marmara. But because we were Jews and because we were Europeans, we got the easy handling of just tasering us and beating us. Later on, I participated in 3 more sails to Gaza. We failed in all of them to arrive into Gaza with our symbolic aid and with our message of opening and stopping the blockade. But to me, this marked something significant, that we can say what we think, we can vote, we can shout, we can sign petitions, we can do all these important things, but we have to put our body where we feel the direct actions are happening. We have to use our bodies. We have to use the relatively security that we have as non-Palestinians to be in the front line. Because, for example, when we are demonstrating together with the international activists and Palestinians in the West Bank, in a village like Bil'in or other places, when the army shoots and kills Palestinians, you talk about it the next day. There are few articles here and there, and that's it. They are used to killing Palestinians every day. Just yesterday and the day before, it happens all the time. But we, as Israelis, as Norwegians, Americans, anywhere, we have to be there with our bodies, and sometime by that, we can make a difference. And now I just want to say a few things about the image that Israel is trying to create. Just yesterday, I saw the film Tantura. It's an Israeli film about the massacre that happened in '48 in Tantura. For decades, the state, the military, the people who were there tried to cover the story and claim that there was no massacre. Of course, Palestinians knew that there was a massacre of almost 300 people and mass graves. But in the Israeli public eyes and internationally, people don't know about it. Israel is investing huge effort to create a false narrative. It started already in '48, while the massacres were happening. Ben-Gurion was ordering people to write different accounts of all the different fights in order to shut and hush the massacres. And until this day, every time you're trying to raise awareness for something that happened in the Nakba or in the continuous Nakba until now, there are major forces trying to silence it. And we here have the power to make these things not silent. And when things like that are resonating outside of Israel and Palestine, it comes back also to the Israeli public. That's how it works. It will be hushed, and the mass media, the mainstream media in Israel will not talk about anything until some group in Norway will block the entrance to some weapon factory or to the Israeli embassy, and then they will hear and talk about that. So just as an example, the JNF, the Jewish National Fund, planted endless trees and forests all around the country where the demolished villages. The villages that were demolished in '48 and later in '67, most of them are covered with JNF forests for Israeli families to come and to do picnics. In some places, you have kibbutzim. You know, many of your parents probably came as volunteers to these kibbutzim. Lots of these kibbutzim are built over demolished villages. And if it's not over, it's in the fields where their agricultural fields are. That's where the demolished village. The Tantura massacre that I just told you about is, Tantura was right on the beach, somewhere south of Haifa. After the massacre, they destroy completely the village. They left just one or two buildings and built a kibbutz, beautiful kibbutz with socialist ideology. Most of them probably vote for the Labor and maybe even left than the Labor Party. This is the Zionist left, building a kibbutz with socialist values over demolished villages and mass graves of Palestinians from the Nakba. So we have a lot to cover, a lot to try to uncover for people to see the reality. One more thing that Israel does all the time is try to create the image of a just court system. And just 3 weeks ago, I came back from there, and I went to the trial of, I don't know if you heard about this activist, Issa Amru from Hebron, a very prominent activist from Hebron. He's been in trial for years and years in military courts. And I came to that military court. I got, you have to get permission in advance, and then you can go inside and see this farce. And it's amazing how much the system invests in creating this image of justice. But it's not. It's like a theater play. There is a judge who is an officer, a military officer. There are advocates from both sides, and you just sit there in the room and you understand that this theater play is so successful because they managed to convince the rest of the world, and of course, the majority of Israelis, that this is justice. But in this military court system, 99% are found guilty. So it's just a show. It's like when you think about any dictatorship that they are doing trials in courts, but it works towards, for example, your politicians. The Norwegian politicians, they will say, yeah, this is a court system, they are doing that. But it's not. It's really all nonsense. And it's just another way of Israel to mask the apartheid. Now I want to go to see the parallel thing. Of course, not as horrible, but Norway, the country that we all live in, is with this image, self-image of peace-loving country, sending activists all around the world, and NGOs, and Norwegian People's Aid, and Norwegian Church Aid, doing so much good, donating a lot of money to the Palestinian Authority, bringing people from Afghanistan for negotiation, all this peace and love. And under the surface, Norway is a supplier of weapons to so many of these conflicts. And this hypocrisy has to stop. And if I have one message that I want to keep with you tonight, is that this hypocrisy of Norway, almost in the top list of per capita earnings from arms trade. Okay, so if we take and divide the money that Norway makes from arms trade per the numbers of Norwegian citizens, we are in the very top of the list of all around the world. So this hypocrisy has to stop. And my suggestion is that we'll think of concrete actions in Namo, in Raufoss, 1 hour and 17 minutes from you, or in Kongsberg, 1 hour and 18 minutes from you, or in Nobel Chemring, which is like 45 minutes from Oslo, and do some direct actions, maybe a vigil, maybe a weekly thing, maybe a daily thing, maybe bring flyers to all the schools so the kids will know what their parents who are working in these factories are doing. We have to change the paradigm here. We have to think to think big and to act locally. And I, as an activist who is now here, I travel back and forth a lot, but I'm based here now in Oslo. I'm really happy to be part of any of these kind of possible actions and help in any possible way. Other things that that I'm doing, and I talked about it with Line yesterday, talking with young Norwegians, students, youth movement in the different parties, even the parties on the right or the Christians. There is a lot to do here in Norway that will bring this awareness to a level that will tip the actions of the government and try to use voices like mine and other friends of mine as much as possible. We do that with the whole heart, and we have a good reason to to volunteer in any of these kind of actions. For conclusion, I'll just say that again, thank you very much, Sacher and Odun and Lina and all of you. When I talk, sometimes I get too excited and too emotional. So sorry if I was a little bit too much, but I'm speaking straight from my heart. So thank you very much, and please feel free to ask any kind of question.
Ja. For deg. Ja, for den koblet på, da tror jeg lyden koblet på to ting samtidig, det går kanskje. Ok, men det åpent for alle å spørre, og i den grad Jonatan trenger oversettelse, eller om han overhodet ikke hører nok ved at dere spør, så får jeg prøve å formidle det inn her. Det noe som, ja, Jamil? Ja, jeg tenkte å spille han sier. Et øyeblikk, skal jeg bare, do you hear what is said out here?
Yes, yes, but my Norwegian is not good enough, so you'll have to ask in English.
Når han snakker om at norsk og Norge da, har stor ansvar I forhold til nære leveranse til Israel. Men han må ikke glemme også at Norge har stor respons eller ansvar I det palestinske problemet, hvor grunn av Jan, eller statsminister Garachi. Han leverer ungdom som Israel har som bonde. Det også en veldig viktig del av seg, hvis ikke han klarer over det. He's talking about, of course, also the deliverances supporting Israel is a part of Norwegian responsibility, but he reminds also about many decades ago when Norway were delivering, what do you call it, heavy water for nuclear weapons, etc., to the Israeli government. So this is history very far back.
Yeah.
Also, siste ting da, Oslo-avtalen. Vi hadde også møte med utenriksdepartementet om Oslo-avtalen. Vi spurte inn spørsmål Audun var med på møtet. Har palestinere ble lurt av Norge og Israel og USA, eller har Norge og palestinere ble lurt av Israel og USA? Og da sa ingen ble lurt, sa utenriksdepartementet. Okay, we had a meeting with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, delegation from here, and with different organizations together with us. And we were addressing the question, of course, Norway had the responsibility for the Oslo Channel agreements. But then Jamil asked the representative there if Palestinians were fooled by USA, Israel, and the Norwegian authorities in that process, or if in fact Norway was also fooled by the others as pretending to be a part of the Palestinian rights at the same time. And the answer was that no one were fooled. So of course it was not easy to interpret, but they didn't, at least they didn't say that Norway were fooled. They seem to have been a part of the process and must take responsibility for the effects of that agreement. Her snakker vi om virkeligheten. Tiden viser at den faktisk for å drepe den palestinske staten. Og det er det vi føler, iallfall jeg føler den følelsen.
So they have big hopes for the Oslo process, but everything happening after that proves to at least Jamil and many Palestinians that this has been really going the wrong way, and they have been fooled into a trap where they lost rights more than they were given what was promised at the time. Var det omtrent som Jamil, var det omtrent noe stort noe jeg utlatt I oversettelsen dere vil adressere? Greit nok? Okay. It was not a question, but Line or Jonathan, do you have comments on what is said so far?
I can just say that instead of digging in the Oslo failure, and of course it was a disaster, and the situation of the Palestinians just worsened, and in a way all the checkpoints and all the mass building in the settlements and all the apartheid roads are in a way a result of the Oslo Accord, and Israel just took advantage of all this stuff to intensify the oppression and the occupation. But I personally think that when you meet officials now in the government talking about the Oslo agreement from 30 years ago, it's a waste of time. Talk about the involvement of Norway now in arming the Israeli apartheid. That's what you need to talk about. The fact that Norway sends weapons, and these companies are owned by the government. 50% of Kongsberg, 50% of Nammo are Norwegian people. We, like you as a citizen, you are owning these companies. And I think we have to bring it to the actions on the ground and to the, before Norway has a right to talk about what is right and what is wrong, it's almost like before I have a right to speak about Palestine and Israel and peace and love and negotiation and apartheid, I have an obligation to stop being part of the wrongdoing, and then I can start talking. So Norway has to stop being part of the wrongdoing and then start to negotiate and send mediators and do the future agreements. But as long as you arm the apartheid, you cannot be a fair broker in this situation.
Yes, you're throwing out a very interesting challenge for us there to think in a bit new ways. And of course, I'm quite sure that many see your analysis as quite close to their inner thoughts. And that sort of action is maybe worthwhile starting to plan a bit more concrete. We'll come back to that point in the further discussions. Hope to see you again here soon, Jonathan. But are there any more questions from the public? Or comments? Kommentarer eller spørsmål? The word is yours, Lina.
Jonathan, I wonder if you can say, because you told us, hi, by the way, about the combatants for peace, and you left them, and we also hear about there is a direction towards the right in Israel, yeah? And then we speak about the Israeli peace movement. But can you tell us what is the situation right now when it comes to that in Israel?
I think it's always like a fluid thing, and again, it's not. I'm not here to say bad things about any organization that is dedicated to bettering the situation, and dozens and hundreds of activists from all these different organizations are on the ground putting their lives in risk, trying to show solidarity with the Palestinian struggle. But but when you look at things a little bit from a distance, sometimes you realize that you can maybe want something good, but you are playing a role that is contributing to some confusion or some problems here and there. So I don't want to start to criticize too much, but the overall situation is that the public opinion is shifting to the right, especially after all the years of Netanyahu and all the incitements against lefties and stuff. And even now, with so-called a new government, but they are doing worse things than even Netanyahu. It's just a better image for the inside. From the inside, people think that it's better, but it's not. So when the public is shifting so much to the right, some of the actions that our organization are taking are sometimes strange, and you're not so sure if they are the right thing to do. To me, the line goes quite clear. Like, if you are for boycott against our country, Israel, if you are calling for solidarity with the Palestinians, if you support the right of return, if you support the end of the occupation and the blockade of Gaza, I hug you and I'm struggling with you. But many of these organizations will be very careful when it comes to these clear things that I just mentioned. So, as I said, I think each one of these groups have important role. For example, breaking the silence, which I also helped them initiate when they just formed. But they are very careful not presenting clear opinions about the situation. For example, I say I'm for one state and full right of return, equal rights from the river to the sea. And they will be very careful not to mention exactly what is the solution. They will try to be very careful not calling soldiers to refuse or calling Israeli youngsters not to join the military. But they have a very important role when it comes to speaking to the public, a lot in Israel and also outside. So I hope you understand this kind of delicate situation, but to me, the line is very clear.
Line, vil du ha et siste ord om et eller annet? Kommentere noe til slutt? Ellers så vi bare til å måtte avrunde hvert øyeblikk. Så vi bare si det sånn. Ok, da har jeg lyst til å while we're still on, we'll soon block it out. We'll soon stop and end the meeting. But before we end, I would like to maybe ask our leader, Giro, to come up and so that we can address the gang in here and our guests. If you'd been here, you'd get flowers by now. So we'll keep it in mind next time you get here.
Give my flowers to Line, and thanks again for everything.
Hi, Yonatan.
Hi.
I'm Guru. I'm the leader of a local Palestinian committee here in Ringerike. So we would have gotten these flowers.
I'll come to pick them up.
I was really engaged by your speech, and I would like to discuss one of your actions or suggestions for actions in our coming board meeting, and we'll see how we do. So thank you a lot for coming.
Count me into any of these actions. I'd love to participate.
Very good. Great.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.